Hi,
Hello.
how are
Hi,
you?
how are you?
Hi, I'm doing okay.
Okay, we'll just get started with our interview. I'm Chris. Um, I've done some of these interviews, some of these Activated Thursdays here. I'm part of the board of directors of Youth Activism Project. So we're here with Mauricio. Um, so I'll just let you go ahead and introduce yourself. Where you go to school, what grade you're in, what you do, kind of, and then we can talk more about it after.
All right, my name is Mauricio Quintero-Aviles. I'm 14. I'm a freshman at Northwest High School in Montgomery County, and I'm an educational equity activist.
Cool. Okay, so do you want to talk a bit more about how you started your activism journey? Kind of what were the first building blocks for that?
Yeah, so my activism is really centered around educational equity, as I said. And so I live in a county where we have a lot of equity problems, where we have some parts of the county that are receiving a lot more aid and a lot better schools, to be frank. Um, and so I started my activism about a year or two ago. I got into it through SGA, student government, and through that, I slowly progressed into like political lobbying, going to Annapolis, things like that. And now I really just work with organizations and things like that, doing teach-ins, lobbying again, and speaking with our Board of Education members, all of that to create some of the change that we need in our county.
Yeah, so I wonder what are some of the specific issues that you look at? And it's in Montgomery County, right? Yeah, so
Yeah,
what are some of like the specific issues that you're tackling? And like just an example of something that you've done specifically.
yeah. So, three topics that I center around
Hmm.
are one, getting police out of our schools, two, redistricting, and three, LGBT plus rights in our schools. And so, regarding redistricting, that's an issue where our county is very segregated.
Yeah.
Um, like to put that into perspective, we still have a high school, like two high schools that used to be, whites only and a colored school, and it hasn't been renamed or anything. Like, that's kind of the progress that we need. But specifically redistricting, our county is very segregated by race and by class, and so the boundaries are wonky. We have overpopulation at schools, and so it's like a fiscal issue, the fact that we need to build more schools, but we already have the spaces. And also, it turns into a race and discrimination issue when you look at the boundaries and you realize that they're all built around white and rich neighborhoods.
Hmm.
And so, what I have done recently is that I have been working with STEPS, and that's one of STEP's main issues, redistricting. And I've been working with them. And what we've been doing, we recently started our coalition for equitable school zones. And so we have over like 15 organizations in Montgomery County, and I'm spearheading that movement. So I have been the one kind of organizing that, or like not spearheading, but I've just been working a lot there and managed some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely one of the biggest issues. I went to John F. Kennedy High School,
Mhm.
and it's a school that's just the majority are Black and Hispanic students. And then there's a whole problem with just the fact that uh, it's very like our area was very low income compared to like the what is it called?
W schools.
Yeah, the W schools. Yeah, because we were known as like the or something. Um, so yeah, that's just a big problem, and I think it affects everything from like just teacher retention rates are very low in these schools as well, like at Kennedy and Wheaton and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's very important to tackle issues like that because it really shows um, just the bias, especially in white parents in the W schools. I remember like their comments about like not wanting their kids going to the brown people's school and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So yeah. Do you want to talk about what you're doing to get police out of schools and how that kind of sparked as well?
So the police out of schools, we are working with Councilmember Wiljuando and Councilmember Reynos.
Mhm.
And, we really helped push for that bill, and it was recently introduced, and it should be voted on in the next few weeks. So hopefully that is a change that we're about to make, and that's a change that's taken a long time to achieve. Change like that does not happen quickly, and we've been working on it for about 2 years now. But it's kind of like finally bearing the fruit of all your effort.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, and then lastly, your last topic was about LGBTQ rights as well. How do you kind of, I see that a lot of people don't really focus on that in Montgomery County.
Mhm.
So what do you do with that, and what's kind of
So I've
your,
been working a lot with Moco Pride, and we recently launched our first LGBTQ plus studies course, and that's going to be released in whatever high schools have enough participation.
Mhm.
And so that also took about like 2 years,
Yeah,
and that was like a huge group effort. And finally, the bill passed to create that course like last year, and so it's starting in spring. And so right now we're doing a lot of like student outreach and kind of receiving feedback on what we want the curriculum to look like. What do we want in that?
yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, I just think people who are LGBTQ just aren't visible in these schools, I guess. Sometimes I feel as part of that community myself, I didn't feel like was like I didn't have like a class like that, which is really cool that you guys are doing that, to have like a class like that. And hopefully it can be like um integrated into like student life as well, like student clubs and stuff. I hope that becomes a bigger thing as well. Um, so how have you kind of been holding up with all this active? You're doing a lot of work, a lot of great work. So how are you kind of holding up with like your schoolwork as well as like being online and COVID and all of that? What are you kind of doing?
So honestly, I say this all the time, and I forever will say it. Like organization, like literally, that's what helps me most. Like my agenda, my planner, my reminders, and that. Like if I didn't have that, then I'd be like dead. But like that really is what helps me, and what I feel like can help everyone. Like if you just try to stay a little bit organized, writing stuff down.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think that's a big, just having like a calendar and your planner and stuff like that is very
Mhm.
important. And have you been meeting online with other organizations or other students and stuff? How's that been going? Like through Zoom or something? Is that what you do?
Well, yeah, I mean that's the only way for all of us to get together and stuff. Like the only in-person event that we had was a campaign launch in Silver Spring like, about 2 weeks ago, and that's where Councilmember Wiljawando and Councilmember Arenas so introduced it, and so they gave their speech, but like that was the only in-person event we've had. So yeah, it's all been over Zoom, Google Meets, all that.
Yeah. So another question I have is just like during the past summer we had big events revolving like the Black Lives Matter movement and like stuff with guns and like gun control and stuff. So how did that affect, maybe help, negatively impact, or like help your campaign towards like getting like cops out of schools and stuff?
I mean, it's been really like positive for us. Before a lot of people didn't really know the full effects of police officers in all settings. And because of what happened with Black Lives Matter and stuff, that sheds light on different areas of police,
Right.
like police and schools. And so what's happened is that there's a majority support for the removal of SROs, school resource officers. And honestly, I think that Black Lives Matter contributed a ton.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good it was just a good timing, I think, for the fact that you were also working on that, and it's like getting to the end goal. Um, so I read that you also do mental health activism. Is that true in schools? Do you want to
Mhm.
talk a bit about that as well?
So that I work. So we have a task force in Montgomery County, and so it's comprised of student leaders, and then we all help the SMOB and the Board of Education kind of with mental health policies, mental health outreach, anything like that. And so what we've been working on is on the counselor rates in Montgomery County. We have some of the worst counselor rates in the United States, it's terrible. Like an average of 600 students per counselor or less, 400, something like that. But the recommended is around 200.
Hmm.
And so we clearly do not have enough counselors. And I mean, I think everyone feels that because almost everybody that I talk to, you'll ask them like, in how many days does your counselor respond? And they'll be like, well, like at least like 4 or something, and that's because our counselors are overworked. It's not their fault. It's just there's not enough. And so we've been working on counselors and eventually social workers and psychologists, just getting more of those mental health professionals into our schools to help with our epidemic that's going on of mental health.
Yeah, definitely. That's such a big thing. I didn't even talk to my counselor at all. I just went when I had like scheduling issues. They're really like tasked with a bunch of things with like having to do with students' problems, but also having to deal with like scheduling and stuff. So yeah, they're definitely overworked. And are you focusing? I wonder right now with like online school and stuff. Are you focusing on online resources, or are you still just looking towards like physical settings and stuff for counselors?
Well, I mean, the thing is that, the virtual setting is going to end pretty soon. So we're working more on like in person, because eventually people, regardless of how advanced we get, people are still going to prefer like going to talk to like a counselor and stuff in person.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, so I wonder, what are like your next steps as an activist right now? What is something you're excited about maybe in the future with all your work, or upcoming, like you mentioned before?
We're all excited for all of the things coming out in January. And so, like the boundary analysis report, which is an independent consulting firm that came in and then did the analysis on our boundaries, and they are releasing their report in January. And so that's hopefully when we're going to be able to achieve that redistricting. And not only that, also the decision on SROs is coming out in like January. So we're just kind of waiting out this month, doing our last pushes for to educate some more parents and stuff, and then just waiting for what happens.
Yeah, that's very exciting stuff to look forward to. You just mentioned educating parents and stuff. How does that work? How do you do that? What do you educate them on? And
So we
especially, um, how do you kind of tackle parents who like don't speak English for their first language? Stuff like that.
Yeah. So a big issue in Montgomery County is the misinformation, especially how lots of parents from like Eastern County and stuff just don't get information, and also students. That's an issue. Like if you just look at like, for example, MCR, like the county-wide SGA, there are a lot more participants from like Western County than there are Eastern County. And one of the biggest factors that drives that is the sheer fact that literally that information is just not getting spread to those schools and those parents. And so we're also working on the boundary analysis because they've been asking for feedback from parents. And obviously, parents from Western County have been dominating the surveys, the results.
Right, right.
Um, so we host a lot of teach-ins. We try to just get information out through social media and stuff to parents. But in that educating, what I refer to by that is more like the teach-ins that we host, through MoCo for Change and stuff. And because a lot of parents just don't know. They don't know that police officers have these negative effects. They don't know that these boundaries are inequitable. They just see like what happened with their child and they're like, well, my child's doing fine or my child's doing bad. And so this kind of helps put it into perspective because not everyone thinks, in this like kind of compromising way. Not everyone thinks about everyone else. And
Right.
so sometimes you have to host those safe spaces where there can be those discussions, there can be that information.
Yeah, that's very important. And you call them teach-ins, did you say?
Yeah.
So how do those work? Like, how do they work, and what is it? Is that something through steps, or is it
Through MoCo for Change
Mocha for
and
Change?
through STEPS and other organizations. Um, and so it basically just data is presented in an unbiased way. And then we like to give our perspective on it, which is then, this data clearly suggests. And then there's the space for the discussion where we hopefully try for those parents who, maybe don't have the right perspective, we try to kind of influence them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's very important to do. Just to get out and teach parents about all the issues, especially ones who are, I think a lot of parents, especially in like the down county schools, a lot of parents work a lot of hours and they don't really have time to be invested in their students' lives and stuff. So do you see a big turnout for parents from like down county schools and stuff? Or do you have that information?
Um, just like a general overview, yeah, you can still see the disparity in that parents from down county do not attend as often.
Right.
But one thing is that we usually do direct um, our teachings a lot to like Western County and like to those areas because that is the area that we need to like turn people in a way. You know, we need to
Right.
tell them this and we need them to know that maybe these school boundaries aren't equitable. Like there's a lot of fear mongering that goes on in Montgomery County
Mm-hmm.
because there are lots of, you know, conservatives or people who don't think so progressively and they'll use big scary like phrases like, you know, your kid is going to get bused 30 minutes on 270, you
Yeah.
know? And so there are lots of parents who are just under that influence that just kind of need to see these like this data and this fact and you know they'll realize.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I understand that method of going towards the white parents, especially because they're the ones who kind of have these bad opinions and stuff. Um, so yeah, I wonder what is something um that you kind of I think you are doing amazing work and you're like at a very young age as well. So what's something that you kind of want to tell other activists who are kind of aspiring to do their work, especially in this time of like the pandemic and like virtual learning and stuff like that?
So my number one like advice or recommendation is literally just like throw yourself out there and like, you know, raise your voice. Honestly, just throw yourself out there. Go to this organization, see if they need anything, if you can be a member. Like one, organizations help a ton. You know, like Steps was one of the first organizations that I started working with, and they really helped me a lot. Like the people in there, you know, they really helped me and to develop those leadership skills and also to learn how to do activism. You know, what tactics can we do? How can we get this message out there? And so just throw yourself out there because you will find the resources to learn what you want to do or to start activism. You just kind of need to look for them.
Right. Yeah. And us here at Youth Activism Project, we also provide those resources and have helped a bunch of organizations such as Steps, such as Mocha for Change, and have collaborated with them. Um, so yeah, I agree. I think that's a very good point to just tell people to go out there and not be afraid. I think a lot of people are afraid of like um, older people not listening to them maybe or not taking them seriously. But I think in this time during this generation, I think the youth have a lot of power right now. So yeah. So yeah, is there anything else that you kind of wanted to share with everyone? Any upcoming events that you wanted to promote, or any groups that you want to promote, stuff like that?
Not really. No,
Yeah, well, this was a great interview. I learned a lot from you actually, and we hope to stay connected with you and to see your upcoming work. Maybe we can have like a follow up um Activity Thursday after things happen in January, even because that's like a big month for you, I think. Um, so yeah, I think I'll end the interview here. It was great talking to you, and thank you so much for sharing with us.
of course. Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.